Some had a way with horses. Barlow, who nagged Darryl to distraction, said if he spent as much effort on the job as he did dreaming about being somewhere else, he'd be a rich man. But Darryl had never seen the point in working himself to death when there were so many other ways to get what he wanted. And taking it from somebody else was the best way he knew. Still, since he didn't want to go back to jail, he stuck it out for the lifetime of nearly 3 years. Then he'd gotten what he wanted by stealing the $6,800 under the table cash Barlow kept hidden under the false bottom of a drawer in his office, which showed what a dumbass Barlow was. Then he'd helped himself to some equipment, some parts, busted open the display case on Barlow's prize Bowie knife, figuring he could sell it along the way. He'd packed up while his mother was at work waiting tables, as she always had for piss-poor pay and worse tips. He pocketed $3,200 from the pouch she kept in her flour tin. It rounded him up to $10,000. As he considered himself a good son, he'd left her the remaining $646 with a note that read, "Thanks, Ma. Love, Darryl." He'd loaded up the truck he boosted from the garage and said "Adi-fucking-os" to Lonesome, Oklahoma. He walked into the rope and ride and Ella-Loo's life on his 21st birthday. That was fate, they determined, as they were a gift to each other. Within 24 hours, she and the duffel bag holding all her worldly possessions were loaded in the truck with him. They drove fast, spent lavishly, stole when the mood struck, and fucked like a pair of rabid minks at every opportunity. By the time Darryl was arrested in Tulsa for trying to pocket an engagement ring for his soulmate, they'd blown through nearly every dollar they had between them. He got 4 years, as he'd had the Bowie knife on him, and this time in the Oklahoma State Pen. Ella-Loo waited for him. She took a job at another bar, made extra with BJ's, though she wouldn't, even for good money, allow any other penetration. She was a one-man woman. As devoted as a priest at Sunday Mass, she visited Darryl every week and, in fact, conceived a child on a conjugal visit. Darryl read more Shakespeare and honed his mechanical skills. He learned more about engines, learned how to build bombs, learned more complex ins and outs of computers and electronics. He got himself an education he might have put to good use on the outside. She named the baby Dara, after her Darryl, and drove her back to Elk City where Ella-Loo presented the infant to Dara's grandmother. Though she could hardly stand to be away from Darryl so long, she gave it 10 days. Long enough for her mother to fall in love with the baby and for her stepfather to relax his guard. Knowing her mother would never allow her stepfather to set the cops on her, she took her great-grandmother's silver. It would have come to her one day anyway, left the baby, and drove back to McAllister for the next visiting day. Maybe, when they were ready to settle down, she and Darryl would go back for their daughter. But like Darryl said, they were star-crossed lovers and had to live and love every minute to the full. A baby didn't fit in with that. He got out in 3.5 years due to good behavior, and she was waiting for him, wearing a tight white dress and red high heels. They barely made it to the by-the-month room before the dress was on the floor and the shoes were in the air. As they both agreed they wanted McAllister in the truck's rear view, they spent only that night eating, drinking, the sparkling wine Ella-Loo had copped from the bar where she would no longer work or give BJ's, and having sex. She wanted to go east, clear to the Atlantic Ocean. She wanted big city lights and noise and everything that wasn't Oklahoma. New York City, she told Darryl, was their destiny, as it was the only town big and bright enough to hold them. So when Darryl's truck coughed and